Hello, 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 hello. Started up a little early today. Figured it was fine. Woo! Oh no, I forgot to get coffee. I'll get coffee after, or later, or maybe in the middle of this whole junk. So yeah, we're gonna work on little old Smeagol today. There was one thing I wanted to fix before moving on, which was I was thinking a lot about this guy, and I find that one aspect of him that's important to get across is like his age and like trying to sort of suggest that he is that aged hobbit or river folk person, and not just this goblin-y creature. And I figured giving him some some like shrunken jowls would be a cool way to like show that twist in the head. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this so far. Yeah, guys, I'm alone today. Spiridon will be on tomorrow, and we'll do a little old school stream then with Giannakis. But for today, stuck with me. Just gonna work out these colors and lay my plans for how to push this forward. So, by the by, if you guys have the opportunity, seeing as this was voted on by the patrons over at the Patreon, and that's like part of that project. If you guys feel so motivated, please do join. It'd be cool to have your votes on the next poll. I was thinking of putting the Backwater Bastards on the next poll. That could be pretty cool. Getting to do Blasnak or the Baron or that bunch. That could be interesting. I would like to do that. To make that whole thing like a little more project based. Anyway, that'd be cool. Yeah, this is Procreate. Taldarin. That's like an elf from D&D. Taldarin. Sup, Schlurby? Yeah. So when we hit 200 members on the Patreon, we'll be setting up a Discord to try and keep this community a little more active. So it is kind of linked in with the Twitch thing, is the Patreon thing, because the more I can sort of rely on the Patreon, the more I can dedicate time to doing these things. So if you like this kind of content and you like hanging out and drawing and talking and you can pick each other's brains, then give a buddy $1. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, yeah, tell your friends. Exactly. So you guys got any questions for me? Or what else? Put them in the chat. Put question ahead of it, just so it's a little easier to pick out from the general chat. And let me know what you guys are working on today. Hopefully something cool, something sweet. Yeah, we can have a look at the layering process. As I say, if you post questions, just write like question in bold in front of it, so it's easier to pick out. But yeah, so this far the layering process is pretty easy. All the underlying layers, all the small ones, just from the study day that started this whole thing, and then we did a bunch of post explorations. Usually I'm not like usually I have the idea before I start drawing, but this time it was kind of cool to like test out the different elements, because like this crouching post is not something I've usually done much, so that was really fun actually. I should do that more. That was cool. So like this was the post we ended up with. And then I drew the line art over that, and there's a couple of others. This was like the first case study for the guy. So you know, I like the look. I like the sort of ravaged heroin addict chic sort of look. Chic might not be the word, but you know what I mean. Yo. Oh, you have a question. So right now you are laying down variations in local color. Also looks like you're doing that with general light and shadow in mind, even though you are then going to go on with the multiple layer. Yeah, so I'm not actually doing light and shadow at the moment. I'm just trying to figure out where there might be lighter or darker patches of skin. So while it does look a little bit like modeling, it's actually just layering in color where I figured that the skin might be more or less saturated in terms of color. And sometimes that overlaps a little too, because you know where light hits more, there will be more bleaching in the skin and stuff like that, or more tanning in the skin depending on the nature of the light. I'm trying to get these like this red transfer to sort of read as like unhealthy skin kind of. I want that for him. So as we go in, I'm gonna be using like that, like a stark top light, kind of like, you know, sun coming, not sun, but like some sort of stark daylight-y sort of thing coming in through the cracks in the walls of the misty mountains. But yeah, so then we'll go over this after. What I'm gonna do though, I'm gonna do a thing that I try to be good at, but I forget a lot of the time, or I just kind of skip it. So I put the line art layer to multiply now, which means I have to work in pretty light colors to do it. But I want to try and just fade in the line art as much as possible to try and begin to treat it as a painting right away. So it's like a reverse of what you would do with traditional media, where you would do this with a colored pencil or something to begin with, so that you wouldn't have such stark lines to deal with. But now I'm kind of going and doing it after. It's an advantage of digital. You can cheat a little. You can change your mind. So yeah, you obviously like telling stories. You ever thought about writing and drawing a comic? Adamovich, no, I have never. Well, I've been asked, so of course I've thought about it, but no. But I've been trying. I'm writing a longer story for time, which is part of like what hopefully is going to be the future of the Patreon too, is to kind of tell and illustrate that story. Using sort of a concept art approach to sort of build that world as the story is told. Yeah, it's a big old undertaking to kind of frame out a story that you like, and then try and build characters you care about around that. But yeah, like comic books isn't really my thing. And people get like all protesty when I say that, like oh, it'd be great for it, maybe, but I want to try an illustrated book first, at least. I'm working on making snake character not look like a frog. Ooh, remember like the deep jaw on the snake? That's a nice little thing. And also teeth. Big difference. Skeletortus just got an iPad and so trying to procreate an Infinite Paper. Ooh, I heard about Infinite Paper. Is it good? Let me know. It seemed kind of gimmicky when I first saw it, but maybe it's great. Who knows? Don't knock it till you try it, as they say. But then when you do try it, really knock it. God damn it. That is an excellent joke. Anyway, well. Oh yeah. Ooh, hello Stitch. Back from Bulgaria. Hey, Dinner. Ooh. Nice to hear from Argentina. I understand difference skin and off material or clothes. It's just one color in real life. How do you deal with that? Well, mostly individual things are multiple colors. And as they're affected by different light, they will display different colors. So I don't really deal with that. Like, look at any material really. There's huge little differentials in lighting all the time. So you kind of have more freedom to play with that than you might think. And even though some materials are more uniform than others, all things are relative. So like blue is only as blue as it is next to something orange, you know? Like you can coax all kinds of colors out of all kinds of things. So I like to keep with like limited color palettes for emphasis. It can be a really nice way of working. Ooh, Rob's the name subscribe. Thank you, Rob. Hey, you told us you uninstalled Battle Brothers this morning because it was taking too much of your time. Can you be honest and tell us how bad your company was destroyed that you had to rage quit and install the game? Dude, I'm too much of a character to play the game properly, so I kept like I got killed a bunch of times, and then I kept jumping back to the last save. So I took myself out of that emotional space pretty early in the game because it is brutal. That game is. But yeah, if I'd been invested in like completing the game on its own premises, then that would have definitely happened. Good lord, that game is brutal. You spend like 50 in-game days like coaching up characters, and then they get killed by like a free crossbow shot to the face. Like, no, it is so unforgiving. But yeah, no, I was getting like you get to a point in the game where it kind of requires you to grind or to take chances to sort of complete higher level things, and I'm impatient, so I tried to like skip ahead kind of or do the difficult things, and my guys just fucking got slaughtered, so that was unpleasant. Oh yeah, Slurpee is ready for the next time. I am ready to get more into that too. Let's see. I think I like the interface and controls of Procreate better, but Infinite Painter has cool features like recording and canvas texture, which affects the strokes as well as the background. I think, not entirely sure. Well, Procreate has recording as well, but it doesn't have canvas texture in that way yet. But it probably will. And the Liquify tool does kind of give you that effect if you fuck with it. But like I can show you. I should be testing that out more because that is pretty cool. But so if I like, it has all these like push and pull functions, so pressure, and like, yeah, size, big, distortion, pressure. So you have all these like cool, and it flows really well. Jeez, I'm just getting really into this now. But yeah, pinch his little face. Ah. So that's worth checking out. Oh, I missed it. No, Salty. You missed nothing. Raid from Ahmed Aldur. We're getting raided! Thanks, Ahmed. Ahmed Alduri. Oh, thanks, David. David liked the Nordic Harry Potter school thing. Sorry about spamming your chat with the most last stream. No worries. Canvas engineer. It's really cool. I can see the being really good for like water ripples and reflections. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's a great tool that I haven't had taken the time to sort of play with properly, but I really want to. So I'm gonna do that with these next couple, I guess. When you draw a character, do you ask questions like what he will eat, drink, and will he be environment, and so on? Or am I crazy? No, I think that's an excellent thing. I actually have like a whole talk about how you should be imagining, you know, the setting around your character to inform the designs that you make for that character. And I see that there's actually, at least in my opinion, a big shortage of that in a lot of design. And I wish there was more of that kind of questioning, because it makes for such more interesting designs, because they have thoughts and explanations behind them, and like how they would fit into the world and how they would aid this and this aspect of this character's life. So yeah, no, I think that's an excellent idea, and I don't think it's crazy at all. All right. Question. Just wondering, why always use multiply soft light and screen linear add layers? Why not just pick the actual color for the shadow like you are actually painting, apart from the fact it's quicker? Well, it is partly that. It is, you know, like, it is very much down to, like, being a proper painter. Like, I could go in with a normal layer now and sort of lay in a layer of lights and darks, and then sort of locally pick out colors between that and sort of go through that process. It's doable. It's very laborious, and I mean, this is part of the reason why I call myself a draftsman rather than a painter. This is another set of training that I haven't sort of mastered to any appreciable degree. So, you know, I'd be a little concerned that it might come out worse for wear, but I have done that before. It was sort of how I started out in Photoshop as well. So, if I was to do something like that, I guess you would kind of have to go, especially because of how like RGB works. I would probably have to go in with like a normal layer and then lay in like a pretty saturated dark color as my shadow layer, and then sculpt everything back out again. But then I would also have done kind of a different approach with the local colors. So I probably wouldn't have done this. I would have chosen like one theme color, and then chosen a general color for the shadow, and then an internal sort of lighter color for the shadow that I could fade back into, and have to set up a specific lighting. So it's purely down to that. This isn't painting. This is character design. So this is just an easier tool to use. But I dig the question. It's a good point, because it is a skill set. It's part of a set of knowledge that's really good to have. So I do appreciate the question. It's a good point. What, in your opinion, is the best way to learn as self-taught artist? To ask questions and then come up with the most completive answers. I think, sort of, if you can break your work down into a set of problem-solving exercises, that's usually easier in terms of like learning, I think, than any other way. Because when they are decided questions, then it's also easier to focus on like the difference between preference and fact. And where could we find the talk of yours? We'd be eager to check it out. I don't know if it's been recorded. Might have been. But if you come to a lecture that, you know, if I'm going to Playgrounds, I'm in Berlin this year, so if you're there, you might hear something to that point. I'm in the process of rewriting it a little to include some new information and update some old pointers. But yeah, I mean, you could see wherever I appear, I guess. I see Gollum is getting along well. Thanks, Luca. On another note, glad I found your stream. Thank you, man. Tried any other art apps? I haven't. I've started with Procreate as soon as I got. Well, actually, I got the iPad to get Procreate because some friends of mine showed it, and I was like, oh shit, that's the bomb. So I haven't really been exploring that much. But if you have some other ones, I'd like to. I love learning. So please do share them around, man. Let's see. Trying to get more thoughtful with my process instead of letting my hands do everything and kind of following along. It's hard to get used to. It is indeed, and also it makes you. It's an ongoing sort of process to not allow yourself to become that kind of pedantic dude who picks on other people for like running with autopilot, because it's just a preference. It's not like a right or wrong way to do things, but well. Except there obviously is a right and wrong way to do things. But yeah, no. So but I think it's worth sticking with if you're into that sort of design. But I appreciate hearing that you're sticking with the struggle. That's good. Hi Evan. I think thank you, Luca. Question: have you ever looked at Brother Baston? He's on YouTube and Twitch and did a world building series of videos that are really cool. Reminded me of it when you mentioned concept art based world building for Tyne. Ooh, I haven't. Brother Baston, you say? I'll check that out. Oh, looks pretty cool. I will check that out. To be fair, I've had the question lingering over my head for a while. It's hard because we don't have photographic memories. Yeah. I just mentioned using multiple layers instead of painting in the colors because I feel I wouldn't be able to do the process traditionally unless I was laying thin washes of acrylic or oil. I want my process for traditional and digital to be the same and look the same result. That's fair, man. That is fair. Though I think it is a recipe of like driving yourself a little bit insane with digital, because you should be like, yeah, I appreciate the urge, but I think it is a principle a little bit misapplied. As long as you understand the underlying functions of the things you do, I don't think there's a problem with breaking with like the limits of traditional. But I do also appreciate that it's my pen is out of battery again. I do appreciate that it's a good idea to stick within the confines of like some set. So yeah, sort of at least focusing on what you would be able to do in traditional is it's a good bar, I would say. But what I think too is that it's important to let digital be its own thing. So like what I would usually do then. I mean, we can explore this a little bit. I like that. I like the thinking. I think the only problem is if you're gonna stick specifically with the limitations that are presented by doing things traditionally, you will very soon end up like creating functions just for limitations. And that might very soon sort of stop paying dividends in as much as it's just sort of complications for the sake of complication. I think it's better to appreciate the tools that digital gives you and use them for what they're worth, but not let them dictate the outcome or the result of your piece. If that makes sense. Have you ever used Procreate as your primary tool for professional work? Yeah, I do that right now. Yeah, I do most of my work in Procreate, actually. Paintstorm Studio. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Jan? Torn between returning to Playground in Eindhoven or going to Berlin? Well, Luca, I'm going to be in Berlin. So, if you come around, we can hang out. Evan, do you think the process of drawing is more rational or intuitive? Give me a second. This is a warm sweater. I think it's a little bit of both, right? You can get a lot out of a lot of artistry out of intuition, because intuition pays itself to our sort of puzzle solving idea, and so we love to solve puzzles as humans, and so setting up puzzles and solving them for an audience is kind of artistry, right? You give them a mystery and then you give them the solution, and they have to sort of put them together in their brain, and it releases endorphins, and you get happy because you did something cool. So that's the intuitive part, but the rational part is like construction and understanding all the things, all the things, all the underlying structures, really. However, I used your process for my latest illustration, and it's probably my best piece ever. Oh, okay. So Will is pushing both ways in this one. That's cool. Imagination Studio. You have the most questions asked out of any artist on Twitch. I kind of want to make a compilation of all FAQ and clip your answers for the convenience of everyone to refer to. Hey, dude, if you would do that, that'd be awesome. Evan doesn't even FAQ. What's more important, doing it the right way or having the end result look how you want? Well, I kind of consider those, unless you can can you point me out the particular difference there, Satail? Because that was Satail, right? No, that wasn't Satail. Yeah, Satail. If you can point me out the difference between those two, because those sound like kind of the same thing to me. You have a lot of videos that I can slice up and make it easier with FAQ commands in chat. Yeah, sure, dude. That'd be amazing, Imagination Studios. I finally made it live. Hello from Florida. Hey! Have I ever seen this German TV series Dark? I have not. I've heard good things about it, though. Alright, so because Will made it a bit of a challenge, we're going to do this kind of traditional-ish. So, I'm pointing it out, boy. So what we're gonna do is essentially just paint it out from an ambient lighting scheme, and then we'll throw on the side light later. So if I go quiet, it's just me concentrating. It's not like I don't like you guys anymore or anything. Alright, could you explain a little, could you explain a little bit about how you utilize your layering process? Like, what colors are you selecting that overlap your local colors to achieve an accurate shadow color? So that is an exercise in the relationship between things. So by the way, just what I'm doing right now, I'm going to be using the lasso tool and try and make these like nice gradient shapes. That's something we were always taught in art school. To try and start breaking down shapes into using manuals and gradients with like gradient painting to kind of like try and wrap the form, kind of what you would do with a pencil, but with paint instead. So you use natural shapes and the resulting cast shadow. What were you saying? Yeah, no. So the relationship there is between like the light and the resulting shadow, and the comparative contrast between those two. So if you have a light that's cold, then the shadow is going to appear warm. So that's the relationship. So all you really need to choose is, what are you more interested in, the cold light or the warm shadow? Because you can keep them. I mean, you can kind of choose the gamut there. You can either keep things very close in terms of values and in terms of hues, or you can go wild. But so those are both statements that impact the outcome of your piece. So you just have to then choose what statement is more important and which statement is more appropriate for your piece, and you go with that one. Maybe do both and compare results for science. Yeah, well, that could be fun. See what we have time for today, but it probably will be elements of both, because you can, for example, think about like a multiply layer when applied properly can work as like a varnish layer when you're painting, for example, to bring out a lot of or maybe that's more soft light. Yeah, if you lay in like soft light with the right values, it can work like a varnish layer. It can bring out like the richness of the colors. So this will be fun. This will be a more a slower process than usual, but that's fine. We're not in a hurry, and we're here to learn, so that's cool. It allows more direct studying too. I'll be talking out all the mistakes I see myself doing, so that you don't have to make the same ones. Like, for example, try and be disciplined with the appropriation and application of details. Treat them like candy, you know, like it's a little treat now and then, but it's not something you do all the time. So you wait till the very end, after you've had dinner, after you've had your peas and whatever, you know, your potatoes and your things, then you can have some candy. You got everything else in. Will you be arriving over in Berlin or over in Frankfurt? Berlin, I think, Salty. Hello, our community. Yeah, me too. Imagination Studio. What's nice. I mean, like, worrying about having the process reflect traditional set of steps. Talking about, so basically, what's more important, the end result or how you got to it? Okay, so I mean, okay. So, so again, like it's a bit of a misnomer of a question, because let's say that the particular tool we're talking about there, Satel, is, for example, like photo slapping. That would be, I assume, a tool we could talk about in that frame of reference. And the thing is, the use of that tool dictates the outcome. You'll get, you know, a highly detailed thing, but it'll also be a thing that's defined by the tool you used to arrive at the final result. So by that very nature, it's defined by the tool you used. So then which one is more important? You tell me. I think the most important thing is the vision to begin with. If you know what you're going for, if you know what you're emphasizing, you can no doubt achieve different results with different tools. But if the outcome has a certain, if the intended outcome has a certain read, then either of those treatments should, to the best of the ability of the artist, be applied to the original intent, not the most easily executed result of the medium. So by that logic, then the end result in itself is more important than the way you got there. But on the other hand, if the end result, in spite of quality, is defined overly by the method by which you arrived at that end result, then over time that will have very negative impact on the production of art, because it means that the success of the art is determined by the technique by which you arrived at that result. And that's problematic, because it also will then define to a certain degree what is asked, what is like what the marketplace will ask for. and so like there's a cycle there. So it is important to be able to produce good results, but it's also important to sufficiently quantify what the quality of those results are. Because, yeah. Am I making sense? Somebody tell me if I'm making sense. I'm afraid I'm missing out on the chat here. Okay. I try to lean my process more towards the traditional artists, and it's definitely been a learning experience. Moving to pair both the process and use the digital and the one I created for traditional for a happy medium. So, I mean, I usually go with like the Craig Mullins thinking on this, where, you know, like Craig will use Photoshop for all that it's worth. He's a big supporter of the power of the Blender brush. But he is also, you know, actively drawing and painting in oil and doing all this other stuff as well. So I think it's more about the craftsmanship in that case. You know, like the techniques he brings into digital and adapts to that medium from traditional. It's still based around the same set of rules of value management and shape dynamics and that sort of stuff. And so I think it's more about, you know, being true to the craftsmanship than being true to some sort of arbitrary set of rules depending on like what the previous generation of tools dictated. Because don't forget that traditional is also a huge span, which in upon itself has the same kind of conflicts as we're talking about right now. When oils became a thing, like movable oils in tubes, that was considered not real artistry, because, you know, you weren't blending it yourself, you were buying the tubes of paint. So you let the producers of the paint dictate the quality of your blues and your reds and your whatnots, you know? So it's just a repetition of the same argument. Raphael says, I'm drawing for years, but now my father will give me an iPad Pro. That's awesome. I'm a little insecure because I don't know how well to paint. What basic process of painting my draws do you recommend to me to start? In Procreate. So there is, I do have a pretty sort of simplified and useful process for that kind of like going from drawing into painting sort of thing. And you can probably, if you look at the previous videos on here about like that orc Witcher hunter dude, then you'll see sort of like what that process is. Other than that, there is a lot of good methods out there. I would say that as a rule, try and determine for yourself like where your level of competency and comfort is on any of the different any of the different disciplines necessary to complete a painting, and then try and break the problem down into as many constituent problems as possible or necessary, so that you can solve them one at a time and then combine the results for effect, rather than having to deal with the problems of light and color and design at the same time, but rather try and like separate them out individually. KISS. Keep it simple. Stupid. Okay. Will, the whole cool light and warm shadows thing confuses me with my latest piece, as I had cool green blue moonlight and warm shadows, yet very warm lanterns from above and below casting orange light and producing cool shadows. How would you handle such a thing? So you then have a primary, secondary, tertiary light problem. So you have to choose what your middle is. And remember that like comparative contrast really only works between two sources. It's like if you have, let me. So if you have do a little bit of color theory. Big ol' swatch of yellow. Within the yellow, we have a pale patch of sort of, oh, that was too gray. So that last patch of green or yellow desaturate starts looking pretty blue. So we can work this further and get like more of a blue purple color out of it. But essentially that's comparative contrast. Now that doesn't work if I then introduce actual blue to it. Then that doesn't look blue at all anymore. Right? So comparative contrast really only works between two light sources. But you can choose where your primary, secondary, and tertiary light sources, where they affect more, where they affect less. But remember that these are choices. So this is how you tell your story. This is how you make your point with those things, right? So when you say you have lantern light, you can choose where those lanterns are. You can choose to what degree they light the things you want them to light. You might have to move things around to suit yourself, but you know, at that point, it's a question of design. So then you have to reassess. So you can do the primary and secondary thing, and then imply the tertiary light either with, like if it's warm lantern light, then that can the light that's actually reflecting off of the shape of your character or whatever can be a highly saturated but low intensity light, as warm light tends to be, like infrared light, for example. And so you can have starker, stronger light sources for the cold light, and then the warm light can be the sort of ulming reddish orange, for example, and it can blend more into the shadows. Or you can run it the other way. You know, you can have the major lighting happening by the warm light, and then you can have the cool star / moonlight as the accent. That works too. But that needs to be a choice. Pity. Frankfurt has really cool stuff. Then age. Berlin also has a lot of nice. Then again, has a lot of nice architecture and probably a lot other interesting things. That's true. But you know, I'll make a point of coming to Frankfurt sometime. Seems like a lovely place. So I work more traditionally because I've never painted traditionally. Maybe once. I want my skills to carry over better to traditional when I start working in oils. So there's an intent behind that. On the other hand, I want to maintain a speed and digital still to push it further. Yeah, so if you want like transferable skills, then again, it's less of a problem of using the individual digital tools and more of a question of understanding where those tools come from and what function they actually fill. Like linear dodge and color dodge weren't made to just saturate colors and make fancy highlights. They're there for a reason. So you know, go read up on some photography and figure out what these things actually refer to. What a now I forgot what they call it, linear dodge and color dodge, what they actually mean, you know. And those effects again might be quite useful when you're going back to painting, because then you could emulate these pretty complex lighting situations and lighting themes with your traditional work. That'd be some next level stuff, you know. I think people get a little hung up on that, what the right way is to make art. If you make a table using different method than it's traditional, you still made a table. That's true. I think there is need to be impressive or pass some sort of test to be considered an artist. Just not true. Yeah, that's true. That's the point. There is always this sort of uncertainty, imposter syndrome, ongoing thing that we all try to work around. And I feel like, at least for me, like I used to think like Will is kind of struggling with at the moment, the whole like, can I go outside the bounds of what traditional media would allow me to? And I still haven't been arrested for it, you know. So I'm not sure. Maybe there is an art police out there, but so far I haven't met them. But I also do admire people who understand those principles by which people who are savvy in traditional art limit themselves. But again, those things are much more bound by the principles that traditional art, or art learning in general, has bequeathed upon us, rather than the limitations of specific oil painting or acrylic painting or egg tempera painting, you know. So I don't think it's entirely a fair question. Though I don't think it's intended to be unfair either in any way. I'm just saying. Oops. There's two going there. That's silly. Jesus. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Just depends on what you want to get out of the art. Damn, canvas engineer, you go deep. You're not a real artist if you're not painting on a cave wall. That's true. It's like that joke about the musician who like goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and in the end, he has to start making his own drums, because he wants to be authentic. But he does realize he hasn't made a lot of music lately, so there's a problem with that, you know. Yeah, totally. And any tip or rules the pros tell you are the things they learned that work. They're not laws that unbroken destroy your credentials. No, it's true. I mean, it is very sort of pirate codey, this stuff. It's all just suggestions. It's not stuff that you have to stick with. Sorry, I'm so behind on the chat, by the way. But they're so useful because they know what to do to achieve certain effects. Yes, but you must also realize that the level of artistic discourse is uneven at best. You know, people will use all kinds of terminology that doesn't really mean what they think it means sometimes. Like, I've had art directors tell me to be a little more impressionistic when what they meant was simplistic, you know? So, if you can be analytic enough to break down what they actually mean, and sort of get to the nub of what they're actually trying to get you to do, then fine. But be aware that there's a lot of people talking out their asses out there too. And you know, I'm always a little worried. Like I've read about what's it called, the effect where like people will talk as if they're experts, but they know less and less and less the something. Anyway, I'm always a little worried that I'm in that, you know, that I'm having one of those where I'm just talking out my ass, but I try not to. After looking a lot of Ruangia and HJGs, who's that? I realized that the air of precision is actually more around the values and composition rather than the colors. This in turn allows their colors to be looser. I only saw this because one of HJG's pieces had cools in the front and warms in the distance. The main reason it worked is due to its values. Yeah, you can see that in things like James Gurney paintings too. He'll do like warm atmospherics, for example. It's pretty crazy, but it works. To be honest, color theory was really easy for me, but I'm a horrible draftsman. Good draftsmanship, shapes will always prevail over good understanding of color. Just keep it simple. Yeah, a lot of times, Salty. Then you see like the crazy color, you know, gods who just like coax these beautiful shapes out of nothing. And Canvas Engineer has a good point. Color allows you a lot of freedom. That simple drawings or drawing techniques have a hard time imparting. So it's definitely a worthwhile tool. Canvas Engineer. But now when I look look at a plein air painting I can associate back to digital brushes and brush modes I can use to achieve said effect. It's exciting finally having that under my belt, and understanding and experimenting can only go up. Hell yeah, canvas engineer. Okay, sending a squad car to your location. Menace, no! Of using overlays, linear dodge, etc. is something learned when it looked at Anthony Jones tutorials. It blew my mind because a beginner painter felt like I could do something from my imagination that actually look okay. I found that other things were lacking, and more traditional base would be great to have versatility and dissent from the norms of digital. Yeah, indeed. And I do think that the more people can kind of bring general art knowledge into the modern sort of market of commercial illustration, the better. Because I don't want to throw shade on anybody, but there's a lot of people who are like masters of, like, jack of a bunch of trades and then masters of none. And you know, to a certain degree, I'm probably guilty of that too. Like, I can do a bunch of things, and I do a few things pretty well, but there's still like things I could do to sort of achieve that like Mobius level. You know, I'm still not there yet. But you know, the more people can bring, like we talk about a lot about like self-learning, and there's a bit of a and yeah, there's a bit of like a hierarchy in that, I think. And I think people should just there's a certain set of pretty objectively useful art lessons learned over the last couple hundred years that we all can just take in. It's not really subjective anymore. And then, you know, there's modern art, which is all subjectivity. But yeah, you know, is it self-learning if we learn it from what is in essence an objective lesson in the depiction of the real world? I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it is, but this feels like it's gonna start another big debate. And all I want to do is draw my little Gollum. Modern update on a Ralph Bakshi version. Very nice. Who's Ralph? Oh, was that the dude who made the 1980s animation version? Because I don't know how to feel about that. That it feels like kind of a compliment, but on the other hand, it wasn't a great looking movie. So I don't know. Are you messing with me, boy? Do you mind if I link? No, go for it. GJ. I'm not sure who this is, but I would love to know. Yeah, it has. Oh wait, so yeah, X% was one thing, but it has like there were two researchers who did a bunch of stuff on it, did a bunch of writing on it, and it has like a very specific name. It's called the their two names effect. Fix the Dead Cat says, "Hi Evan, I was wondering, how do you train in order to draw your characters with steep angles? Is it through figure drawing or just perspective and drawing boxes?" It is through both, Fix the Cat. So, you know, you should really, yeah, both of those lessons do interact a lot. So it's very much worth doing the work on it. There are a lot of amazing artists who do crazy things with color, but they have really good values and shapes on it, which conveys strong knowledge of fundamentals. This is true, Salty, and it is worth saying too that like good value will trump good color. Like if you have good values, you can fuck with color. You can just screw around with it because it'll look good anyway. Well, not anyway, but you'll have a much better chance of like making colors pop if you understand the value structure that supports it. Let's see. There's a lot of what do you think of Albert Uderzo? Work on Asterix fame. Looking at his traditional pencils and inks before color kind of reminds me of Claire Wendling. Ooh yeah. I don't know Albert Uderzo very much, but I'll check him out. But I love that kind of stuff. Like that's kind of my ideal right there. Is like Claire Wendling is pretty ideal when it comes to drawing, but that kind of direct application of understanding of the real world into beautiful levels of abstraction that are there purely to focus on the essence of the thing that she's drawing. That I think is like the sign of true mastery. She's a true master. What do you think of? Oh yeah, that was okay. Here we go. HGJ. Oh, holy monkfish! I think I've seen this before, but what the hell? Oh, these are huge pictures. Gonna take a minute to load them. I'll check that later, but that looks amazing. Under him, an artist studying under him, and reminded me of his work, so I decided to go some analyzing. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Thank you, Skeletortoise. That's the one. Dunning-Kruger. Man, that is fascinating. If you guys haven't read on it, you really should. And in the spirit of Dunning-Kruger, I'm gonna say no more because I don't wanna tempt the fates of like landing in a Dunning-Kruger by talking about Dunning-Kruger. All right, back to work. Let's see. Should we just simplify this back arm? I think maybe we should. Just leave it like deep in the shadows. Could try and do something nice with it though. So we can have a little bit of backlight hitting it from that side. That'd be cool. And then yeah, that works. That looks nice. Hey, Gonzo trip to the art. Wow, that's a mouthful. Hello. Do you prefer the iPad over your Cintiq? For everything but size, I like the size of the Cintiq. I miss having like a huge workstation. If they ever make an iPad that's like, you know, A3 size, I'll be a very happy boy. Do I hear a child shouting? You probably do. It's a pretty young neighborhood around here, so there's a bunch of children. Sometimes. Yeah, there you go. There's a playground around here too, so there's especially like in the evenings and the afternoons. There's a lot of kids. Today I watched old Tolkien interview, and you know what? In some moments your stream you look exactly like him. What, really? Maybe I am Tolkien come back from the dead. I wish I had his distinguished accent though. That'd be cool. He sounded so cute. What do you think about health issues for maintaining a posture like yours many hours? I usually take a bunch of breaks when I work, and I do a bunch of stretching, and I make sure to go and work out. I do climbing a couple of times a week. So, I mean, there's a lot of people who get into some trouble with, especially with posture issues. I haven't really had issues with either posture or with tendonitis much, but I know it's pretty easy to fall into bad habits and sort of acquire those. So I would suggest, get up often, do a bunch of stretches, try to be aware of, soreness and stuff, especially in areas that you can feel that you're activating when you're drawing. Like, posture is important, but also like how you activate your body to maintain a posture is important. So, trying to be good at balancing out your stresses, stuff like that. Es important. This is a topic I dread because I have a bad chair. Get a good chair, Canvas Engineer. It is worth the investment, seriously. It's like, if there's one thing it's worth spending some money on, it's, yourself. So do that. If not for yourself, do it for me. For someone learning art later in life, do you have any recommendations on what I should focus on first? Sorry, that was asked by another stream. Can you recommend any books? I can, Eugene Dream. First and foremost, get yourself, and say it with me, kids, Andrew Loomis. Hear it on the wind. Andrew Loomis, all his books are free online, and they're pretty fantastic. They are... And you're in luck, Eugene, if you have time to hang out with the streams. We're kind of going through a bunch of Loomis studies, at least this month, maybe even next month. So, starting with Fun with the Pencil, moving on down the list, is pretty cool. So, get on it. Get on it! Other than that, I think what you want to focus on is just, like, fundamentals and principles are the key of all things. If you can get to a point where you can learn how to make your own, that's a very good place to be in. You can understand, like, not just how the principles that sort of pertain to a bunch of art, how those work, but like how they were arrived upon, and then you can kind of do studies and try and do your own breakdowns of how the world works. It's very useful. Do you seen epic rap battles of history, J.R. Tolkien versus George R. Martin? Yes, I have. It's pretty funny. I always feel a little weird about epic rap battles. Like, I like them a lot, but sometimes I'm like, these people wouldn't fight. They would just be best friends. Why would they fight? Oh, why must everybody rap battle? Why can't they just rap? Like, one of my favorite rap videos on YouTube is the compliments battles, especially with Shuffle T and Marlowe. They're the best. If you YouTube Shuffle T and Marlowe and compliments battles, you'll have fun. Those are great. So, And it does kind of touch upon those things. Like epic rap battles are really funny, especially I love the one with Newton and like Neil deGrasse Tyson stuff. That was really funny. But I love the idea of like stretching that concept. So a compliments rap battle is really funny. Amazing work, man. Thanks for streaming. Oh, thank you, G. Thank you. Yeah, 28. Yeah, 28. Skeletoys. Take breaks and stretch. Try to avoid Gollum posts when drawing. Indeed, dude. I was very bad when I was in art school. I would do Gollum posts a lot. Usually because, I'd be drawing a lot between classes, and we didn't really have like a common room or anything, so I would just like get into like any little corner I could find and sit and draw, and draw and draw and draw and draw and draw. What color do you have selected when using in the multiply? Do you generally choose something less saturated and then on the lighter side? So right now I'm not actually using multiply layer. I'm just using a normal layer since we kind of had some questions about that and I wanted to sort of exemplify my point. So I'm doing a bit of a simulacrum of traditional, but if I'm using a multiply layer or a hard light layer, I'll usually do a shadow color that's comparative to the light quality that I want. So if I'm doing a sort of happy-go-lucky bubblegummy color scheme, which shocker, it does happen even to me. Then I'll usually go for something pretty neutral for the shadow, so that I can have a colorful primary and colorful tertiary light source, and then the secondary is usually kind of gray to accentuate the two colors. Again, using comparative, but not next to each other, but as a trilogy. So you have one offset and two accents. That works. Yeah, maybe. I mean, the way you tell your stories and develop your characters somehow looks the same, but in previous messages I wrote about your voice acting things mostly. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I like a lot about how Tolkien thought about like character making and character development. And here's the thing, right? So, another great character developer, or at least prolific character developer of the same era, was our dear Tolkien. No, was our dear Disney. And the way Disney developed characters kind of became a bit canon, at least in Hollywood. And you see a lot of that reflected in video game design. And ironically, a lot of it gets kind of part and parceled into fantasy video games, which themselves feed a lot off of Tolkien. And so you would think that would be kind of a match made in heaven, these two prolific character creators overlapping. Except Tolkien fucking hated Disney, or at least the way Disney made stories and characters, and that Tolkien felt like he was dumbing it down for an audience that should be respected and not condescended to. So, in fact, there is a bit of a crash there. I have to get a better chair too. Yes, Luca, we all gotta get better chairs. Better chairs all the time. And thank you, Satel, for posting the link. alexhayes.com/Loomis. Loomis is great. Gurney's book and coloring is dope, and then there's Bridgman. Yeah, all of those are great. And then, but keep in mind, always in mind, that these are the rules that you need to learn so that you can figure out how to break them interestingly. That's kind of the big deal here. What is it they say in Gatsby? Oh shit. That you have to, in order to be eccentric, you must first figure out how or where the circle is. And that's kind of what we're doing when we're studying color theory and design theory and all these things. We're figuring out where the circle is so that we can place ourselves appropriately to the things that we're interested in, comparative to the knowledge and the general rules of illustration and other disciplines. Do you think that having fun when you draw is more helpful for learning faster instead of too much boring stuff for learning? Uki, yes, I think it's imperative that you have fun when you're drawing. Otherwise, what's the point? However, learning isn't always going to be a dance and roses, and so there's a big difference between just having fun, as in running around and playing video games and eating candy, and fun as in accomplishing and sense of improvement. And that's really fun too. So the important thing is to make sure that you can cognitively, continuously know why you are studying the thing you're studying. If you're just studying for the sense of studying, it's very quickly going to get very stale. So it needs to have a distinct and particular function for you. Otherwise, it's just going to feel empty. So that's, like, for example, most of the studies I do them directed by whatever I'm working on at the time, or in preparation for something that I think I might need for something that I'm going to be working on. That's really important. So it's a good question. Like, we should all... Fun is a pretty complex thing. Fun isn't drawing the thing that we know, but the thing that we know that we have to learn. And it's about exploring. It's not about delving back into the thing that we already have mastered. It's not about showing off what we have mastered. It's about humbly acknowledging what we have yet to master, and then boldly going forth and attempting to master those things. There is this sort of thing that I come back to a lot. That the question is that there's two. The question is that what kind of artists are there? There are only two kinds of artists. There's the artists that want to be great artists, and the artists who want to become great artists. And I would always want to take that second group, because if you want to be a good artist, it means that you're into the romance of it and you're into the grandeur. And that's fine. That's high-handed. That's a lot of deep concepts, no doubt. But before I can take your concept seriously, I have to be able to take your craftsmanship seriously. Otherwise, it could be anything. It's kind of the price we all pay to prove to each other that we're serious about this shit. Now, again, that's not a law. That is a general rule. But it is a useful one, because a lot of people will talk a big game and then deliver nothing. So be that second group. Be the group who want to become and get ready for the slog and learn to love the struggle. Because that's where we are, and that's the only true measure of artistry, is the length people are willing to go to learn the hard things and to do the hard things to make good and cool and interesting art. And again, I hope I'm not Dunning-Krugering this. Do you think? Yeah. En helt er kommet. Google Translate er hans våpen. The jacket is starting to include language now. This is going to get dangerous. A new hero has arisen, and Google Translate is his weapon. I'd like to recommend Dynamic Anatomy by Bern Hogarth. I read most of the classic drawing books everyone suggests, but that one was my favorite one. Yeah, I mean, so Hogarth is great, make no mistake, but I usually limit my my study of him a little, just because he's very sort of theatrical. Hogarth and Hogarth specifically is extremely theatrical, and while he can Like he'll make your drawings look dynamic as hell, but they'll still look like there's someone that, you know, there's someone very dynamic but with feet made out of concrete. Like everything's extremely well balanced and extremely sort of. And sometimes that's not what you want. Sometimes that's not the proper effect, the appropriate effect. So Hogarth is real good for like hero illustrations and stuff like that, but yeah, he too has his shortcomings from time to time. I draw at work when nothing happens. That's a good start, minutes. Hey, Apathy. Also just Anatomy of Styles by Patrick J. Jones. Not read that one, but should try it. One should have fun with a pencil. Indeed, Prosper. Oh, damn. Have you dealt with artistic anxiety? I find myself hesitating to start the piece because I know I won't be able to execute it in a way I'm happy with. Alright, Schlurby. So this is kind of the whole point of this stream. To make this one point. And if I can do that, then I'll be happy. And that is, try it anyway. If you fuck it up, cool. Figure out what you fucked up. Go do your studies. Go figure out how to do that thing you fucked up. Go back and do it again. And if it turns out that the whole thing is too much of a clusterfuck, then make sure that in the beginning of the whole piece, you worked out what the original concept and intent was, and you save that stuff, and you go back in a year when you've done a bajillion more studies, and you do it again. But I'm not going to say that I haven't dealt with artistic anxiety, but there are certain sets of it where you can kind of just approach it with some healthy know-how and just fucking get on with it, because that one is not overly complex. That's pretty much just, don't be afraid of fucking up. We all do it, and you usually learn more by fucking up than by sort of accidentally doing a great thing. The worst feeling in the world is not artistic anxiety. The worst feeling is having done something awesome and having no idea how you're going to do that again. Like you accidentally did something great and it's now better than what you could do on purpose. That sucks. So yeah, don't be afraid of fucking up. That's where you figure out where your limits are. It's where you figure out where you start butting up against that circle. So you have to reacquaint yourself with it and understand it better and do it again. I think the fact that you're worried about Dunning-Kruger means you're not. Yeah, I guess that's the safest way to deal with Dunning-Kruger, is to just be in a continuous semi-panic about betraying myself to it. Oh God, I've been Dunning-Krugered. By the way, I've been really enjoying your THU sketchbook interview. I came back to it from time to time for inspiration. Dude, that's so nice. Yeah, I remember doing that with Carla Ortiz. What a hero that lady is. I hope I get to come back to. Yeah, I hope I'll have the chance to go to THU next year. That would be fun. Da, 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 la, da, 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 da. Have you guys seen the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, by the way? Freaking genius. Did I get... I'd love to draw the posthumous emblem. I did not, Prosper. I would love that. That sounds amazing. Been reading the Force drawing books for gesture drawing. It really helps with adding movement to your work. With Mike Matesi. That's worth checking out, no doubt. It's coming from a metaphor for addiction. I feel like there can be another side to it I'm not aware of. Well, definitely addiction is a big part of the Gollum character. I think it's also I think Gollum is a lot of metaphors. He is the metaphor of how most things end not in a victory but in a defeat, and is left as sort of like a gaping wound, and the fact that like a defeat can be a victory. So Gollum's personal defeat was being taken by the ring and him killing his brother, but Gollum's personal victory was kind of undoing all of his good deeds from all of the books and betraying Frodo after he himself felt betrayed, and going for the ring and actually getting the thing that he wants, but that's what ends up killing him. So you can kind of make that a monolith and say this is all about addiction, which probably partly is, but I think it's also about empathy. It's about like recognizing people for what they are and what they're trying to be. I think part of Gollum's story is about being, like observing the world for what it really is and not for what we need it to be. Like Frodo sees in Gollum a chance to prove to himself that even if you're that far gone, you can come back and you can be normal. And Frodo is only made whole again when he realizes that he can never be whole while he is back in Middle Earth. So he has to go with Bilbo to the Undying Lands. And so in that case, I think it's more about the idea that Gollum really lost himself and he never got to find himself, and that's the thing that's dangerous about him. But yes, he's definitely a metaphor for Gollum, primarily a metaphor for addiction. Question. This is meant as a burn, but what do you think of people that have no portfolio or previous work experience of their own, but who only put out content teaching art principles, etc., such as modern day James, who featured you? My instinct is to always go, well, who the hell are you? Where do you work, etc. Hard and just text not to come off as being too bitchy. No, I get you, Will. I think I probably was of that mindset at some point too. There was when I was coming up, it was another group called, I think, Crazy Horse or Mad Horse or something, and they were doing like one of these early art teaching streaming things, and in my mind at the time they were all like not particularly good artists. Sorry to have been a bitchy little dude. This was before Arnolfo taught me how to be a nice person. And I had the same kind of like, how can you guys teach anything? And they were charging money, and so it was a whole thing. But I think there's a difference in like how different individuals approach it. I think it's a legitimate question for some and not so much for others. Like for James, he is very open about that. This is his learning, and you can learn along with him, and he does a bunch of the research, and he essentially presents to you his finding of that research, and tries to simplify it further. Like, it's kind of a sign of the times, right? Like for Loomis, his books were a coalescence of a career of work and learning, and he was trying to break that down into what he thought of as pretty simple lessons. But it's still not the most simply written books in the world. I mean, what's called Fun with a Pencil is pretty simple, pretty easy to read, and written in a way to be pretty easy to read. But even so, they can be kind of like the lessons in them in particular can be kind of abstract and weird and hard to follow sometimes. So I think what James does is really good, because he then puts it into a bigger context for you and shows you, you know, like, this is how I deal with it, and this is how you can go forward with it. This is what this thing means. So I think that's good. But you have to judge that on like a case-to-case basis, I think. What do you guys think? Sup, Noah? Buster Scruggs, yeah. Man, the music from that, we're still listening to it over here. Let me tell you, buddy, there's a faster gun. And that's when everybody logged off. No, it's fantastic. In fairness to James, he shows his work on Instagram. That's true. And, you know, he's pretty straightforward about like what he knows and what he doesn't. Going to try to paint the backyard first, hopefully more times. Hell yeah! Good on, Canvas. I've seen Buster Scruggs. It was strange and interesting and surprising. Yeah, Luca. It is fantastic. And like as with a lot of Coen Brothers stuff, the more you see it, the better it gets. Like we just rewatched as a preparation for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We rewatched Pulp Fiction. And damn, that's a good movie. That's a great movie. If anyone has applied what he teaches, it's James. His whole thing is a play. Yeah, exactly. And he's really like James is really good at like breaking stuff down and like making very, very particular sort of assertions from those things. So you learn a lot from his approaching. His approach, Jesus. Hey Evan, did you get to listen to the Prancing Pony podcast? I did not. I gotta write that down. The Prancing Pony podcast. I will check that out, I promise. Oh, and Modern Day James is a teacher in art school, so that takes care of that. It's not just dig at James. So Will, yeah, I get the point there, but I think what James teaches is like a wonderful version of the basics. So the fact that he shows such a mastery of it, I think is sufficient to sort of find it compelling. Lukey Moo, could you share or recommend some settings for streaming from iPad? I'm thinking about starting us to stream, but I couldn't find good info on how to set up the thing, especially for art. I stream through an app called a Power Mirror, and then onto my laptop, and from the laptop I stream through OBS to Twitch. So that works pretty well. Man, I don't think how much of these streams I'll be able to put up with before throwing whatever it is I'm reading at the moment and get me some Tolkien again. Hell yes, Prosper. Always go back to good old JR. Man, we should have a yearly reading club and just read through the at least through the trilogy. We should get the audiobook so we can all listen. That would be great. If it wasn't for the fact that we'd have the snot suit out of us, having like a stream where we just have the audiobooks in the background and then working on whatever we're working on. Maybe that's something we can do in the Discord. I'm not sure. We'll see. By the way, speaking of the Discord, if we get to 200 people on the Patreon, we're already working on the Discord. But yeah, the plan is to put it up as soon as we have 200 people on Patreon. So if you have a spare $1 in a month, consider spending it there for the betterment of all mankind. If the work somebody's doing is good and helpful, I don't really care if they have a portfolio. No, but also Satale. There is a flip side to that, because people who have great basic knowledge, there is a set of experiences from doing, like, let's call it field work to make it sound fancier. Doing and dealing with art directors, is a whole separate skill set there. Dealing with feedback and working around like specific illustration problems. So I can understand like the want to see that, see a portfolio as proof of like people having at least a certain expertise in finishing things. I know a lot of good artists who are great academic artists, but having a hard time sort of dealing with the more pragmatic elements of sort of the industry. So from a skill level, I agree with you, but from a practical level, it's nice to know if people can do the job you're hiring them to do. Next Patreon page should be Buster Scruggs. That'd be cool. Or yeah, a Buster Scruggs character. Scruggs, I'm calling you out, Scruggs. It's a great movie. Honestly, if I'm Buster Scruggs, it's a bit hard to watch. Yeah, I can understand that too. Especially with like the Coen brothers going and telling the stories that they did and how they do it. You have to just kind of let that part of it go. It's not a story that you're supposed to master. It's a story that is like you have to try. Like it's a big thing with both Coen brothers and sometimes with Tarantino too. It's like they're asking you to trust them, that this is a story. Like whatever this is, it's a story worth your time. If you can give them that trust, then you can just enjoy like the story. Like if you've seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou, that too has like a lot of weird sort of deadfalls and stuff. But in the end, it is the Odyssey. It is pretty amazing. They talk all things Tolkien and Middle Earth. Make a lot of connections between the books. Ooh, yeah, that's the Parenting Opponent thing. I'm gonna check that out. Which iPad am I using? I'm using the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, the first generation, not second generation. But I want to get a second generation because, if nothing else, because of that delicious thing where the pen snaps to the side of the iPad and you don't have to deal with it. Man, that looks nice. Because that's a true hassle. Let me tell you, buddy. It's a faster gun. What's the lawsuit between fans? Oh, menisc. So, what is it you are doing with the painting? Can you explain what you are doing as present? Are you working on shadows now? Yes. So I'm kind of rounding out the shapes. Essentially working off of a light source, an ambient light source. So something coming from kind of our direction, more or less. So I want to paint down the values to be pretty close. Like, essentially, I want a limited value palette so that when I bring in a stark primary light, which is, you can call it a primary or a tertiary, depending a little bit, because it's not really the thing that's sculpting the form, it's just the thing that's going to set it off. So yeah, I guess I'm sculpting it now with just a normal layer, essentially airbrushing, if you want a parallel to a real life technique. Essentially using selections and call it like a wash brush, and loosely and softly putting in the major shape. And then once I've done that, I'll go in on a little round of sort of popping more saturated colors within the shadows for the sake of setting up that comparative contrast with the stark light coming from above. So I'm not using any cast shadows now. I'm simply trying to respect a general sort of upper light source configuration and trying to just scope out the form. So this is a different way of working, and I'm kind of loving it. So I might be doing much more of this. So thank you, Will. This was freaking pretty ace, because it feels a lot like drawing. It feels a lot like full value drawing, which is fun. And it also helps with like limiting my color approach. So that's cool too. It's a nice slow process, little by little, defining the form, thinking about the interaction between limbs and shapes and things, and also keeping an eye on how that light is going to work in the end, because I really want to set off his eye. The one thing I want to keep like in the shadows here is the ring, and then the ring is going to be kind of shining underneath, so there's going to be some light coming from that hitting kind of the underside of these jowly area. So I want like to darken the shadows around the ring, and then have those set off by like the glow of it. And I want it to be like kind of sickly but golden glow. So there's going to be some balancing act going on there. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. That's going to be for the rest of today, I think. So for another half hour, I'll be doing that, and then tomorrow we'll be working on the lights with the spirit on this here too. So that'll be fun. Are you guys having a good time? I hope you are. And thank you, Satale. Man, helping out. Awesome. You need an audiobook bot on Discord that recites the holy verses in the voice chat. Hear ye, upon the mount stood he. Yeah, I don't know about that. Calculator, we're doing good, I think. Noses are made by the devil. Can never draw them. I can never draw them. Menisk, all noses are just fancy pyramids and weird designations. Think about it as such, and go forth with the blessings of Loomis. No, seriously, like noses are hard as hell, but they really aren't. You just have to, like, there's a lot of different ways of getting into like painting and drawing noses. I think the easiest one again is going back to good old Loomis. Is just finding a way of breaking down the shape into its simplest denominator, and then respecting that shape makes like the figuring out of the more complex shape easier. So try that. See if it doesn't do you a world of good. Let me tell you, but oh yeah, fine, they should have a portfolio, but as an observer and a follower of somebody's art, I don't care about the portfolio. I agree, Satale. Serentropy, oh my god, I love what we grew up with. Secretary Sniper is a shit. Definitely recommend it. Awesome Slurby. Tarantino is loved here. We saw just found Buster Scruggs a lot more gritty than what I'm used to. Yeah, so I think that the thing that is wonderful about Buster Scruggs is that it really fucks with like your expectations, and I mean it kind of does what D&D tried to do with Game of Thrones, but they do it well. So it's 6 Western shorts that all like really screw around with the difference between like the tradition of Western movies and sort of the Western hero worshipping tradition of America, and like the difference between that and the written stuff that it's usually sourced from, which is a lot grittier and deals kind of nonchalantly with kind of the brutality and like the borderline evil shit that people were doing on the prairie, and also like historical research. Like people were fucking awful, and so it's like it's great for that alone. If that was it, that would be good enough. But what I also really like is that it's also dealing with all these like interesting theological elements. That also Tarantino does. Like you can see it in Pulp Fiction, for example. But it's like those make for a really interesting story because it is Western, but it also refuses to sort of be within the mold of what we traditionally expect from a Western. So it does kind of break your expectations that way. And I think that works really well. But seriously, if you haven't seen it, go see it and we can talk about it. What would you guys say is like the cutoff point for spoilers? You know, like when how old must the thing be until it's not legitimate to be angry about people talking about it anymore? Like you can't if you haven't seen Star Wars, like the original Star Wars movies by now, you can't call spoilers. Like that is just a lack of trying. You know? So like when would you say is the cutoff points? I remember someone mentioning that at the start of Pulp Fiction, the viewer gets a promise that something exciting is about to happen. That way, it hooks the viewer into believing in the plot. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the genius of that movie is that it's told achronologically, so that you kind of know that some crazy stuff is gonna happen, and also it screws with your perception of the characters, so that like you're meant to like Vincent and Jules up until the point that you realize that they are the antagonists in the Bruce Willis story, and then you're like less like you're not so broken up when the thing that happens to Vince happens, even though you meant to kind of like him, and he comes back later in the movie, just because again, spoilers. How do you disconnect from the film's design? Which film? The Lord of the Rings movies? On your professional work, do you always stick with the workflow, or do you change up whenever you feel like it? So, depending a little bit on what my job is at any given point, it changes things, right? So, right now, for example, I'm working pre-production on one game thing, and production on another game, and those two workflows are pretty different. Sometimes I get to do promo art, which is pretty fun, and then depending on the game, sometimes I also get to do like a bit of redesigning if I do promo art, because something has to be like put on another level of design, so that's fun. But yeah, no, so I vary up my approach quite a lot. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the approach too, is that it's variable. It's you can mold it to whatever you need it to be. It's about understanding principles. It's not about like it being perfectly repetitive. Let me tell you, buddy, there's a faster gun. Sorry, I'm gonna keep singing that. That's gonna get annoying. On your professional uptime, spin on Kickstarter today. Yeah, I'm gonna post about that a little later. But yeah, he's doing a thing for Andrew Marr. So if you guys wanna get like a pretty spectacular art book by a fantastic artist, you guys should get over there and check out Spiridon and Andrew's Kickstarter. You can probably find it on Spiridon's page. I'll be posting about it tomorrow, so you can check it out then. But yeah, it should be pretty amazing. I've gotten to see some of the glory shots that they have of it, and it looks freaking sweet. I want one. Greetings. I'm curious, when you design a character and drawing characters, will you keep thinking the details how to put clothes on? Is it important to you to make sense. Yes, indeed. So when I do design characters, I very much put a lot of time into making the costumes seem like, well, something that not only would fit in the world, but would fit for the character. Like something that they would actually wear, something that they could take on or off, and that would fit sort of in their role, in their situation in that world that they're settled, you know? So yeah, I think that's an extremely important thing. And again, something that's woefully underacted on in a lot of video game design. That's something that would definitely help a lot of that. Plug that. Yeah. What's the scheduled time for tomorrow? I think it's going to be about 6 p.m. Norwegian time, which would make it 4 p.m. GMT. Sub Brush Runner, Eric Zorn. My conclusion for watching: I need to use the lasso tool. Dude, lasso tool is killer. It's so good for like edge control and stuff. It's great. Evan, I have a suggestion. We could make a Google Group album where we could post our golems, and maybe you could take a look at the end of the stream. Yeah, that'd be cool. Absolutely, actually. So probably gonna be 2 more streams till we're done with this guy. Maybe 1 more, depending on how long we go tomorrow. But yeah, if you're if Brush Runner is willing to set that up, that'd be awesome. Or we can see how we can do it, but that would be great. Be really cool to see what you guys come up with. Have you seen Parasite? It's really good. I have not, but that sounds interesting. 3 weeks, most for a movie in theaters. Okay, Almond. That is a pretty strong opening statement. Suppose in the Epic of Gilgamesh. How do you like that? Oh, K9. Damn, you're on it. Just giving a warning, regardless of how old. I mean, we all have some things we still want to read and never got to. I know people haven't read Tolkien yet. Yeah, and I agree with that, Benisk. Like, it's mean to sort of willfully go around and ruining things for people, especially classics like Tolkien. But is it fair to like limit the ability of other people to like discuss these things? Because I mean, yeah, it sounds mean now when I think about it. You're right. One should be kind of. Like, if people expressly say, like, don't talk about this because spoilers, that's one thing. But, like, if someone is at a party that I'm at and they get upset with me for talking about Tolkien because they haven't read it yet, I would at least say that it's their duty to let it be known that Tolkien should not be talked about because, you know, they've only gotten to Tom Bombadil or something. You know? Yeah, so you're entirely right, Minisk. Give a warning. What do you think about just specializing in a specific topic? For example, drawing only sexy girls. Uki, I know about a bunch of people who do that. And if you like that, you know, God bless. I have no problem with that. I think it's like the answer is kind of in the question. It's limiting. It's taking away the possibility of doing other cool things. But if that's the thing that makes you happy, in the words of what's her name, the cleaning lady, Japanese cleaning lady, if it sparks joy, then it's good. So do it. I realized that calling her the Japanese cleaning lady sounds a little less than flattering. That's not the intent. I just can't remember her name. I want to get your art book. Still having up for it. Oh, salty. That's so nice. I hope you get it soon. Your hardcover painting looks interesting. Have you done more than one? I only did the one, Will. I started one that didn't really fit. So I didn't finish it. I could show you that one actually, because it's probably actually going to be like in a doodle section somewhere. So I don't know if I should show you. Should I show you? Can you guys keep a secret? Can you? Can you? I need everybody, all 100 of you, to say you can keep a secret before I post it, before I show you. Oh shit! Oh no! What have I done? Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah. All right. I can show you real quick. Where is, there we go. So that was my original idea. Ooh, hotness. Probably not really secret, but like it's for the I think it's gonna be part of the sketchy section of the book too. And then this is kind of what I did in Procreate, and I took it into Photoshop and finished it. So this is not the finished painting, but that's the thing that I ended up doing. But you can only see the low-res version because you have to go and get the book. Get the hardcover. Yeah, do it. There we go. Back to Gollum. Mustn't show you all my secrets. I don't know, Will. But it is a spirit-on project, so it's probably going to be pretty prompt. Anyone below? Till you find yourself singing. Did you know anything about the new iPad? I looked on the internet, couldn't find anything. Should I buy the 2008 or wait for a new version? For drawing purposes, I'm not into Apple. Thanks. Yeah, I'm not super into Apple myself. No more. But I don't think it's the 2008 because you have to get the iPad Pro to get something to draw on. So but the first generation iPad Pro is still pretty good. So I would suggest that it's worth getting. And it's also a lot cheaper than the second generation. So yeah, stick with it. Or if you have the money, get the new one because it's apparently a little nicer, a little cuter. If they can get away with strip teases on Twitch, then art shouldn't be banned. Yeah. 2018 iPad Pro. Yeah, that one's fine, Nomra. The pen magnet makes a world of difference. I believe it, Brush Runner. I believe. Maybe one day we'll do Evan's renditions of comedy music stylings. So I'll do Book of Mormon and and Buster Scruggs songs all day, every day. All day I made the barren waste without the taste of water. Cool water. A lot more foldable too. Oh, dude, I'm so like with this whole like foldable screen technology. I can't wait until they make like a foldable A3 size tablet. That's the day I'll be truly happy. Seriously, that would be so goddamn cool. Don't you think? Then we'd really be bridging the gap between old and new. How far should you push your local colors and before adding shadow? Well, until they kind of represent the thing that you wanted to. I mean, there's no real sort of hard, fast rule there. Apart from, like, if you have something in mind, if you have a plan, then work the local colors until they reflect the colors necessary to execute the next part of your plan. Right? So like it's a loose term, pushing local color, pushing color. So all I can really say is like, what do you want the colors to be? Do you want it to be sort of a convenient underlay for more ambitious value work, or do you want it to be something that does its work all by itself? That alone will dictate a huge difference in how much time you want to spend on your local colors, you know. So for me, I spend just about enough time to where I can start imagining putting lights on it. When I'm there, I start moving towards the lights, and then, you know, I give myself a little bit of a possibility to go back and sort of revamp and redo, but it's not a huge level of difference there. Does anyone have a simple metal tutorial? My wife, she rejects books and refuses to think about light sources. Anything simple for somewhat beginners would be great. I think my favorite sort of offhand, non-specific metal tutorial is the one that Brad Rigney had in his Massive Black video years back. That one was pretty great. I mean, not to get, you know, into the habit of stating the obvious, but you could just do a bunch of studies of, you know, flatly lit color surfaces, see how they look, and then acquire the knowledge that way. I think that sounds pretty cool. All right, we're starting to come to an end of today's stream. We have about 10 more minutes, so if you have questions or want to make suggestions for future streams, stuff like that, make sure to get it in before we close up shop for the day. Herdy-gurdy. Yeah, Brad Rigney is truly pretty heroic in the way he works. I always got a little annoyed with, like, when he got asked, you know, like, what's the most important thing to do as an art student? He was like, you gotta get to a point where you start taking it seriously. You gotta put down the bong, and you just gotta, you know, give it all up. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. It's a bit of a weird, the specific way of saying it, but man, that guy can paint though. Jeez. I heard that he had started using sort of photos and stuff, like more photo slapping in his commercial work, which I never got that confirmed by sort of people in the know, but the prospect of that made me a little sad. Not that he doesn't deserve the extra time, but, you know, there was something special about the fact that you had like an artist who could do that kind of rendering. I thought it was ace. Let's see. Dan Levisi. Ooh, Danny boy. I miss him. He was wonderful to have around when I was in California. California, yay. He's a good guy. Still don't understand his obsession with Boba Fett though. It's not like, yeah, some people, you know, Boba Fett is like the coolest character ever. And like, he's just kind of a shit bounty hunter. At least in the movies. Gets eaten by an oversized sandworm. Whatever. Prepare for the flame war. I told her to do studies somewhat, explained the concept, and told her to zoom out and ignore details. She just copied the reference. Oh, Zolty. Just get her on the stream, man. We'll solve this. No, it's hard that thing of like trying to. You can't. What is it? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So you know that's okay though. Let her keep working the problem in her own, at her own pace. And keep showing her the magic of studies. Hell yes. Are we still doing mech dwarfs? Probably at some point in the future. We'll make up a cool little scenario. I've just finished watching the whole Great War YouTube show, which, by the way, if you do like history and you like dramatic narration and stuff, I can only suggest checking it out. It's pretty fantastic. It's called The Great War. It was between 2014 and 2018, and they sort of went through almost like a news show, 100 years later, talking about the whole war, and it gives you like a really fantastic idea of how dynamic and interesting that war was, and how tremendously awful it was. And it really gave me this idea of like, this is the kind of warfare I imagine that dwarves would get into. Like, dwarves would have trench warfare. They would literally be digging battle lines in front of each other and just firing things and jumping in. And like, I can imagine like that's how they would fight against elves too. You know, like elves would try and use like nature to their advantage, and the dwarves would literally be like destroying and adapting nature for their advantage. Be a cool concept for like an elf dwarf war. That feel when you finally catch Evan live, but it's the last 10 minutes. Gollum's looking great. Thanks, man. We'll be on again tomorrow in the afternoon, so please do join. Yeah, he used to be a hero, am I right? Oh, Prosper. Wait, who used to be a hero? Now I'm lost. Dan Rob, he does use. Oh, you mean? I'd already forgotten. Nah, he's still a hero for all the stuff that he's done. He does use photos. It's in his gun mode. He just hides paints over them very well. Oh man, that's a downer. I hate you because you have really made me want to download Battle Brothers, especially now that you haven't had to install it for so good. I want to see what I'm missing, but I don't have the time. Dude, make the time. It is so much a worthwhile game to play. One of the better games I've played lately. So, do yourself a favor, check it out over a weekend. Give yourself like a couple of days of playing, and then if you can control yourself around the game like that, then keep it. But if you can't, like me, then freaking uninstall that thing. Just fucking cold turkey. And it was hard too, because I recently uninstalled Rome 2 again, because there's an Alexander the Great mod now, and God, it's so good. It's so fun. And so I was starting to go east, and I had to stop myself because it's too tempting. You can only conquer the world so many times. Except, of course, you can conquer it as many times as you want in Total War. And now Bannerlord is having its open beta or closed beta sometime in the beginning of next year. So I'm like, I should be saving up my free time for that. So I can disappear for days at an end. Be like, Calridia shall be mine. I will lead my Swadians in bloody charges. Of course, it's going to be before the fall of that empire. So anyway, point being, it's going to be great. Always love enjoying dwarves. Their noses are so cute. Indeed. Dwarf noses are the best noses. Maybe when they say Boba Fett, it's the shit they mean. Huh? They say Boba Fett? It is the oh, they mean it literally. Maybe. I can't remember if you answered this before, but when are you gonna set up mentorships? So that's when we get, if we get 400 people on the on the Patreon, then there will definitely be enough support for us to, or for me to start sort of taking the time for active mentorships. So when we're at that point, that'll be a thing too, I hope. Ooh, Noodle is here. Sup, Noodle? Always think maybe I'm the worst English speaker in Evan's live. Always don't know what to say. Pudding rant. Don't worry about it. We all speak weird. Super Brad Brigney using photos. Yeah, Prosper. I got it. You are funny, bed. Now we kill you. Alright. So we are essentially out of time, guys. I am gonna pop some last little digits and dots and read down the chat, and then I'm gonna have to go. Look, lad, English is not remotely main language. Don't worry, we can help. What do you think of the character design in Overwatch? I think it's very on brand for Blizzard. Take that for whatever it means. I don't know. I don't hate it. It's good. It's just I wish it was more interesting. It's a little Team Fortress, but without that particular charm. Noodle, what am I? Okay. Does your wife game or does she become widow gaming when you play? You know what? She is kick-ass at Beat Saber. We have a VR setup, and yeah, from day one she's kicked my ass in that game. It's infuriating because I have no gamer credits with her anymore, and she doesn't care about like the games that I'm good at. Like I can't challenge her to like a like a game of like Squad, which I also had to uninstall because goddamn that game is fun, or like I can't challenge her to like a versus battle in Total War or something because she's like, no, that's not interesting. But we can play some Beat Saber, and I'm like, oh man, and then I get my ass beat again. But Beat Saber is also an excellent game, so it's okay. But yeah, a little bit. When I get old gamery, she definitely does not particularly love that. So I have to be specific in my gaming needs, because sometimes you just gotta play. All right, I am losing myself on this again, so I'm just gonna cut it short here, guys, and we'll see you guys on tomorrow. But let's see. Any more questions before I go? See your stream. Nice. So any questions I haven't answered, please save them up for tomorrow. Get on the pen wagon being working on. Dude, Noodle, I'm very happy to hear you've got on the pen wagon. Next place will be to get on the pen island, and then we'll see. But all right. Thank you guys for coming by. I hope you guys will come by tomorrow for the continuation and hopefully sort of the travel towards the finish line. And then we'll see where we end up. And in the meantime, if you have the chance, head over to the Patreon and sign up, or the Instagram or wherever. Thanks, you guys. And yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.